Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be looking at the potential for some pretty unsettled weather across parts of the UK over the next 36 hours or so, including the potential for quite a lot of rain and also thunderstorms. We'll start off though by looking at the water vapour satellite chart just to get a good kind of general idea of what's going on. And you can see we've got winds coming in like that, and then we've got winds moving around like that counterclockwise, and so that's indicating a large area of low pressure centered in the Bay of Biscay. And this is actually a cutoff low, which I'll look at more at later, but it means it's generally quite stationary and also fairly large too. And you can actually see on the northern and eastern side of this low we have lots of white and green showing up on the satellite imagery, which indicates kind of moist air. And so with moist air and lift, you're going to get rain, and we've already seen quite a lot of rain across parts of the southwest. There's some pretty bad flooding I've seen on kind of Twitter in Wales, I think. But also notice we have these yellow dots appearing across kind of near the low centre and to the east, and that's indicating lightning strikes, which are a good indication that there is instability at play as well. So potentially the risk of storms later on tonight, which I'll look at in more detail shortly. If we examine the cutoff low a bit more to see what it will do, that will kind of help us to understand the general weather over the next 36 hours. You can see it originally is fairly stationary in the Bay of Biscay. Then what happens is it does a kind of loop, or at least it slows down and then does a loop across southern England during this evening and tonight. So there it is, moving fairly quickly through northern France. Notice as well that the ice bars tighten on the northern and eastern side. The winds slightly strengthen as well. And that's slightly indicating a shortwave trough, which is going to enhance that lift and really enhance the chance for rain and storms overnight. And then during the day on Sunday, you can see it just basically is stationary across southern England. And then by Monday, the jet stream starts to interact with the cutoff low, and it's not so cut off anymore. It kind of joins into the jet stream and is pushed out to the east. So by that point, all the very heavy rain will be going, but it will still feel quite unsettled. If we take a look at the kind of lower levels, though, we'll see some pretty interesting things. Now, I mentioned before there's the chance for a shortwave trough moving through, and you can see if I show you the 850 millibar vorticity chart. So just as a reminder, vorticity is the fancy name for kind of spin, just any sort of rotation in the air whatsoever. And then 850 millibars is a height of around 1.5 kilometers. So this is looking at the spin just above the ground, and it will help us identify any disturbances in the air, any features which will bring about lift and rain or storms. And you can see a very clear one right away. This is valid for midnight tonight, and there is a lot of vorticity here along this shortwave trough. So this is going to be a fairly significant feature. The colours are very bright, and actually we do have a fairly decent amount of instability, at least for the time of year. If I show you on the European model here, you can see across the south and southeast, this general region, we're looking at kind of 500, maybe even kind of 800, 900 joules per kilogram, which is pretty much the threshold for kind of thunderstorms and lightning. I mean, you can get it much lower, but this is the kind of threshold for more widespread lightning. And if we examine the sounding, I won't go into too much detail because it's not supposed to be a long video, but you can see, I mean, it's not super significant, but there is enough elevated instability. The surface is stable, of course, so the storms will not be surface-based, so the severe weather risk will be very low. Also notice the saturation is not too bad. It's not a completely saturated profile, at least here, which indicates that initially these storms may be fairly active, especially when we've got the combination of the shortwave trough. I've kind of noticed sometimes, I'm sure other people have done professional studies, etc. on this, but when you get these kind of troughs, at least when the instability is a bit lower, this can kind of compensate and kind of produce an extra boost to the storms. So I wouldn't be surprised to see something close to the UKV scenario, where we have a fairly organised cluster of thunderstorms pushing into the east during late this evening and into tomorrow morning. I think actually this is an old run of the UKV, I'm afraid, so let me just update it. Yeah, so you can see similar thing. I would probably expect the storms to be more organised than this personally, and actually we can check the Aero model quickly. I don't know what that's showing, I haven't checked that today. But you can see, yes, the Aero model is more in line with what I was kind of thinking, and that's a more organised band of storms across the, let's change the pen, you can barely see that, whatsoever. Kind of a more organised line of storms across the east and southeast during tonight. So it might be quite a noisy night in places, and especially where the kind of instability is really able to interact with the storms, for some fairly active lightning too. And I haven't done a convective outlook yet. If I just show you the convective overview chart, or the CAPE. Yeah, so similar values to the European model. Nothing extreme, but where we've got the shortwave trough, that could definitely help compensate. And so this general region in black, I would not be surprised to see some thunderstorms, possibly active thunderstorms at times from around 11 p.m. tonight till 3 a.m. tomorrow morning. That's only kind of the first step of this story, because if I show you this chart once more, once that shortwave is pushed through tonight, what happens is the low really just stays in the same place through the day on Sunday, and we still have a lot of vorticity around, which of course is inherent to a spinning low, but potentially indicating we're going to have a lot of rainfall and actually further storms possible too. And so if we look slightly more detail, this is the surface pressure chart here, and you can see this is the chart valid for tonight, and there's the low, and we have quite a few weather fronts. So not only we expect to see thunderstorms, but also frontal rain, and because the low is staying in the same place during the day on Sunday, those fronts are as well, and actually it looks like we could see stalling bands of rain, and potentially, like I said earlier, quite a lot of quite high accumulations. Sorry. Now, if I show you the UKV run to kind of give you an illustration of what I mean, if I run that through, you can see we have those thunderstorms as I talked about earlier, but they start to kind of transition from storms to long, kind of larger areas of more moderate, but also still quite heavy rain, but kind of more steady as well. You can see what I mean there, more thunderstorms potentially pushing through, but it really does transition into a fairly just kind of generally messy but wet picture in this sort of region, and that is because of the kind of way the low is moving. You're going to have kind of the lows, if you imagine like that, and the winds are spinning like that. The precipitation is going to kind of move off in this direction and actually spend quite a lot of time in these same areas, especially if we get an orientation where, for example, if these storms are orientated in this kind of band, and then that band is kind of moving around like that, what you can imagine is on the edge of the bands, kind of, this is very kind of rough explanation, what you do get is the kind of precipitation staying in the same place, and especially if there's a lot of rising air, like I showed you with the GFS, that indicates precipitation will be very heavy. And so where you have heavy precipitation over a long time, of course, you're going to get large rain totals and the risk of flooding. And I'll show you the kind of worst case scenario on the UKV, which is luckily a few runs back. So this is not the current forecast from the UKV, but bear in mind it's just a forecast. And that this is kind of talking about what basically showing what I was talking about. You get large areas of heavy and thundery rain like this, but because of the way the low is spinning, they stay in the same location across central southern England, in particular this region, during the course of Sunday. As you can see, those storms, they really stay. And also it's worth noting across the west as well, likely to be rainy there, but perhaps not for such a long time. And then you can see that by Sunday, we still have that cut-off low, and we still have precipitation, and so those totals just build. And if I show you the accumulations, now do not take these literally because they're quite high-end, so it's very likely these will not happen. This is one possible scenario, just indicating what I mean. But this is really showing what could occur if we get that kind of training of the precipitation bands. The low would be somewhere here in the channel, and you just get the precipitation staying in the same place over and over because it kind of moves in, and then it kind of is moving like this, and moving like this, and moving like this, and this area on the end just gets kind of all of it, essentially. But it's important to take a look at the different models because there's a lot of lower end scenarios as well. For example, the Icon model shows a lot of the rain missing us, staying in the channel or to the northeast. If we look at the other models, you can see this is a similar picture, kind of bands of showery rain, potentially as much as 100 millimeters in places, which is actually what the Meteorologist warning mentioned. The Icon also indicating rain across the west and the channel. If we look at the DMI, same thing, quite rainy across the west, also the east where we've got those storms. But if you kind of start to get the picture, this is the UKV as well, showing very wet weather across kind of central areas. But if you start to kind of see what I'm saying here, there are a lot of different outcomes, and that's because whenever you have these kind of sort of training storms or the kind of loop-de-loops, they're often very, very hard to forecast, and so there's not a lot of model confidence. We do know there will be a lot of rain, we just don't kind of really know where at this point. But I do have a few thoughts which I'll look at now. Let me get rid of that. So my main kind of thinking is that we are going to have this band of storms pushing through. Let me go back to it there. We are going to have this band of storms pushing through. Almost all models have this area, this kind of shortwave trough, which then kind of rotates like this. So what I do think will happen is that initially East and Southeast England is going to see quite a lot of rain. This kind of area in black here, I think maybe 20, possibly 30 millimeters overnight on Sunday. I then think we're going to get an occluded front developing in this region here, and so Wales, Southwest England, and also into parts of the Midlands will see another fairly significant accumulation of 20, maybe 30 millimeters. Now, the main concern is if the initial event of the thunderstorms combines with this secondary event and produces an area of overlap, and I think if this were to happen, it would be somewhere in this region here, potentially seeing maybe 50, 60, possibly more millimeters of rain. And then the final thing to kind of consider is into Sunday, the actual day Sunday, our low is remaining, and the model like the Arome has a lot of CAPE, or not a lot, but for the time of year, 500 joules per kilogram should be more than enough for some showers. And as you can see here, this could build onto any kind of previous rainfall totals, and actually I wouldn't be too surprised to see this end up becoming kind of just a general blob of heavy rain, which the UKV seem to indicate there. Yeah, as you can see here, just a general blob of heavy rain. That also seems like a possibility during Sunday. And so, like I said, there's a lot of uncertainty, but this general region from, let me clear this, the south, like that, roughly, actually, I'm not sure if I actually think that's right. Let me have another go, sorry guys. This general region here, I think, kind of occluded front, thunderstorms, and potentially the overlap in here. This is where we're going to look at a very, very wet 24 hours or so and bring the risk of some flooding, especially where it's rained previously, and also storms. So that's kind of the summary of my thoughts. It was quite a rambly video, but there's quite a lot to talk about. If you want official guidance, go look at the Met Office website, I'll put the link in the description. But potentially quite a lot of rain in places and storms. I will maybe do another update if tomorrow morning it looks like the situation has changed massively. But aside from that, that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching and have a good day. Bye bye.